This is a News 7 KWWL special report. Growing Forward, the future of farming in Iowa.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Steele.
And I'm Abby Turpin. Welcome to a KWWL special report, Growing Forward, the future of farming.
Well, tonight our newscast will look a little bit different as we devote the entire first half hour to some of the issues facing Iowa farmers today.
And then at 6:30, our special newscast will continue with a panel of farmers and ag officials tackling just how Iowa will grow forward. We're going to start with the huge economic impact of agriculture right here in Iowa.
That's right, Abby. In fact, the impact is an estimated $72 billion a year. That is more than a quarter of Iowa's entire economy relying on agriculture.
But today, Iowa farmers and consumers find themselves caught in the middle of that high-stakes trade war with China.
The origin of this trade war is the U.S. effort to protect intellectual property rights of American companies. Now, researchers predict that tariffs on the Chinese imports this year will cost the average American family an extra $831, not to mention China's retaliatory tariffs on American ag exports. It hits very close to home for Iowa farmers like Peter Schneider. A familiar late harvest scene recently in a farm field near Waterloo, as a combine brings in the final acres of this year's soybean crop for Schneider Farms.
You know, it's a family farm, and it's been in our family for around 150 years. So right now we're currently a mixture between row crops, corn and soybeans, and then hogs.
Farming has always been a big part of life for 34-year-old Blackhawk County farmer Peter Schneider. And just as Peter grew up around farming, his wife and children now enjoy the same surroundings on the Schneider family farm just south of Waterloo. And here, the KWWL drone hovers over some of the more than 4,000 acres of this large independent operation.
Our farm's around 1,200 sows, and then we'll finish out somewhere around 25,000 head of marked hogs each year. We're going to be somewhere around 4,000 acres to 4,500 acres worth of row crop farming. In terms of the tariffs right now, if we didn't have those tariffs in place, we could be looking at maybe a record year in terms of profitability and in terms of being able to, again, continue to make it a viable operation for years to come. It'd be great if the tariffs would go away tomorrow.
As the trade war lingers on, the Schneiders will just do what they do, keep working every day. They'll finish out these pigs and sell them to either Tyson in Waterloo or JBS in Marshalltown.
There's a lot of uncertainty as to what the markets are going to look like for us, and the markets are definitely showing that right now the price for hogs on our end of the world is somewhere around break even versus if we look at the price in China today, they're making hundreds of dollars per head of, that they sell because of the African swine fever disease that they had there and the lack of pork.
And you know, Peter really follows that African swine fever situation very closely, as he is a local veterinarian as well as a hog farmer.
Now, as far as the tariffs, American consumers and businesses have already paid $34 billion in extra costs since the trade war began in February of last year.
You know, right now Iowa has around 86,000 farms, according to USDA. About 90 to 95% are family-owned farms. That's about 2,000 fewer farms, though, compared to the previous census. Now, keep in mind, Iowa had more than 200,000 farms in 1950, and the age of the farmer here in our state is going up as the census data puts the average age of an Iowa farmer right now at 59.
That's right. There are far more Iowa farmers age 65 and older than there are age 45 and younger. Right now, KWW reporter Ashley Neighbor talks with one area farmer about keeping his farm in the family.
I knew from a very young age, probably 8 or 9 years old, that's what I wanted to do.
It's harvesting time at the Kolb Farms, which means you'll likely find Pete Kolb up in a combine.
I enjoyed it, I guess.
His two sons farm along with him. John grew up with that same love for the fields.
I always liked playing in the dirt. I was always in the sandbox, it seemed like, and I just couldn't be around the farm enough. I always liked being out around the machinery. I guess it was just always kind of in my blood.
Their operation is primarily raising grain crops. They also specialize in seed corn and seed beans.
What we grow is what the farmer would plant next year.
While the weather can make or break their yields, it's the markets and when to sell that weighs heavy on their minds.
And trying to identify whether, should I sell today and lock in some of my production at a break-even price if I get a normal yield, or is in 6 weeks that going to look like the worst decision you ever made or the smartest thing I ever did, so.
Marketplaces are becoming more and more unpredictable as the global economy expands.
You really have to pay attention, and it weighs on your mind daily, and you need to be watching that constantly.
The Kalbs have spent years building their operation and improving their land.
And then you would like to think someone you can hand that baton off to, and they will continue to improve.
Family farms account for almost 96% of farms in the U.S., according to the USDA, yet the age of the average farmer continues to increase. While the transition will be years away, John's hopeful this farm will stay in the family.
I want to be a farmer.
John's 11-year-old son Lucas is ready to become the 4th generation, and he's pretty firm in his decision.
Because I watched my dad and my grandpa do it, and it just looks fun.
While the number of farmers may be on the decline, Pete says the same technology that can make it difficult for his generation to keep up will fuel the future.
Probably has something to do with farming being less labor intensive. So one person can farm a lot more than what they used to be able to.
Reporting in Fayette County, Ashley Neighbor, News 7 KWWL.
Managing the growing size of conventional farms, along with the uncertainties of weather and markets, can cause a huge amount of stress.
You know, U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa recently introduced new legislation called the Seeding Rural Resiliency Act. Now, the goal here will be to curb the rising rate of farmer suicides in America.
But this would work with organizations that work closely with farmers to have help out there, and particularly to enhance the knowledge of people that deal with farmers on a regular basis.
KWWL reporter Colin Dorsey talking with one area farmer in Clayton County on how he handles farming's stressful challenges.
Up until a couple decades ago, a farmer with a few hundred acres was considered to be doing well. Those days have gone. Farmers now look at several thousand acres every season. Those extra acres mean for some added stress.
But a lot of times you've got more entities and more parties involved to just make it needs to be bigger just to sustain the family members that are involved.
Eric Oberbrockling comes from generations of Iowa farmers. He's seen the good times and the bad.
A bad year definitely doesn't do anybody any favors. I mean, the big shock absorber to having a bad year is make sure you know your financials.
A bad year can turn a farm upside down, adding a lot of worry to the day-to-day.
Weather's number one from a grain operation. From the livestock side, you've always got disease issues to worry about. Production's the big thing, weather, disease, all equates to getting production.
And a wet and late year like 2019 won't be a cheap year for grain farmers in Iowa. Some crops were planted a month late and harvested a month late. Corn especially didn't get the drying time it needed while still in the field. This means farmers like Oberbrockling will be paying.
Well, the yield is there. We're definitely still going to add to the drying cost, going to burn a lot of propane to dry that crop down to get it into storage.
These are just some of the unforeseen aspects that pop up when planning early in the year.
There's always hiccups in the road. I mean, whether it be a trade issue or the ethanol issue or Mother Nature throwing a wrench in the system.
He tells me the key to running a successful farming operation, which in turn brings down the stress, is diversification, bringing up the old adage of don't put all of your eggs in one basket. In Clayton County, Colin Dorsey, News 7, KWWL.
And if you are dealing with personal or financial stress, there's a list of phone numbers right there on your screen. These are also available on our website, KWWL.com.
Unfortunately, Chapter 12 farmer bankruptcies allow farmers to avoid liquidation or foreclosure, but they did rise 24% nationwide in the last year. There were 24 farm bankruptcies in Iowa over the past 12 months, and that was an increase of 10 from the previous year.
KWW reporter Travis Breeze is digging into the actual cost of running a farm.
Agriculture economists estimate that corn farmers in Iowa sank over $700 into each acre of rented land this year. Now that includes money spent on machine maintenance and supplies. While it is a labor of love, getting back what they invest can be difficult.
I think sometimes going to school for finance would help out some with that.
A brand new set of farm machinery could cost you around $1 million.
I know a lot of the equipment here is probably twice the amount of what my house cost.
Emily Snyder doesn't have to start from scratch, inheriting a lot of equipment from her dad, Ray. But it's tough to find a way around increasing land costs.
When I bought my farm in 1972, we paid a little over $600 an acre.
Now it's over $9,000. The selling price of corn catapulted in 2012, but higher land costs came right along with it. Since then, commodity prices have fallen quicker than land prices, making it harder to turn a profit.
I don't think every farmer out there is in the red. I think the whole system is hurting.
David Baker heads Iowa State's Beginning Farmer Center. While he's seen struggles, he's also seen low interest rates help people like Snyder diversify.
The livestock definitely helps us a lot. That's why a lot of people either get started with the livestock or have livestock plus their crops.
Ray has leaned on Emily for her help in the field and with the finances, and he's ready to hand the keys to the fourth generation.
She's my retirement, her and her husband.
He's kind of already done that a little bit, but yeah, we are his retirement. That is pretty much how it works.
Reporting in Johnson County, Travis Breeze, News 7, KWWL.
One woman at Iowa State University has dedicated her career to transforming Iowa and U.S. agriculture.
KWWL reporter Vinnie Lowry met with a professor at ISU to talk about Iowa's food future.
Dr. Lisa Moore says there are many ideas on the horizon for the future of agriculture, including facing the environmental and economic challenges to growing what we eat.
I think that we have a real opportunity to come up with creative solutions that work for people in the land.
She suggests getting Iowans together at the table.
We actually need more time together, sitting across the supper table, right? Our urban residents and our rural residents, talking together about what we both want for the future of agriculture.
The table discussion would center on building upon the rural community, an experimental town layout called an agrihood, where agriculture and residency are intertwined.
If we expand upon it, it could really offer a lot of people a lifestyle that they frankly crave. You could potentially own your own 10 acres. If you didn't want to do that, you could buy that from a farmer that's located right in your neighborhood.
Bracing for the economy is part of the future. Dr. Moore says farmers can handle a fluctuating market by planting a diverse crop, including small grains. This would use more of their fields year-round.
And market diversification generally helps them weather, the ups and downs of any given market.
Dr. Moore says the transition to the ideal future of agriculture is not fast enough, and that the small rural communities have suffered as a result.
Production, technology, and conservation in a way that also returns value to the farm. We will figure out something that nobody else in the world has been able to figure out.
A lot of this change doesn't just fall on the farmer. Dr. Moore reminds everyone, research only goes so far. It requires society to take the next step. Vinnie Lowry, News 7, KWWL.
Let's talk more now about family farms, a bit of an emotional story. What happens when a farm's right-hand man is given a shocking health diagnosis during their busiest season?
Right now, KWWL reporter Leslie Stone has this Iowa Nice story.
Kiefer Farm's annual fall attraction brings enjoyment to generations of families in eastern Iowa. But that was all put into question recently. Thanks to family, friends, and a little prayer, the family business continues.
Doing this for 57 years so far.
From pumpkins to tractor rides, even a haunted house. You can find it all at Kiefer Farms in Waterloo. But this year is a bit different for the Kiefer family.
He was diagnosed with cancer in the beginning of July. Started taking both chemo and radiation treatments. Experienced some difficulties with the radiation treatments that ultimately gave him an emergency ambulance ride down to Iowa City in the middle of September.
Julie Kiefer says the past few months have been difficult, running to doctor's appointments while keeping up the farm. While she says it's hard to ask for help, a simple post had dozens answering her call.
We had over 40 people step up to the plate and volunteer and help us out.
Normally a key player in the months-long operation, her husband has been sidelined this year. Still, Julie says the pumpkin season simply would not have been possible without him.
His, mechanical expertise and his electrical expertise, he had to help us know how to do that. things happened with the tractor. We needed, his help to help us get through that as well. So, it's all a learning curve.
One that continues on.
All righty, which road did the big one come from?
And off the farm.
I need to be strong for him. Farming is our life, and that's what we do, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Now Julie tells me after the pumpkin season, they start working in their greenhouses, growing flowers and produce to be sold at local farmers markets. In the studio, Leslie Stone, News 7 KWWL.
Leslie, thanks very much. And at the bottom of the hour here tonight, right at 6:30, our special report for this hour, Growing Forward, the future of farming will continue. You're going to hear directly from some Iowa farmers and key players about the biggest issues facing the farming industry in our state today.
And of course, what we eat and grow is dependent upon the weather. You're taking a live look right now at our Storm Track 7 live Doppler radar. And Chief Meteorologist Mark Schnackenberg will have the full forecast coming up in just a bit. Technology has led to huge advancements in farming.
Right, Abby. In fact, KWW reporter Ashley Scott tonight talks to one area dairy farmer about how automation has changed her landscape.
So every single day, you need a farmer. I need a farmer.
Megan Krakel is the 6th generation to take over the family farm. She says her days as a little girl on the farm compared to now are vastly different.
It used to take us 5 to 6 hours to milk 250 cows, and we had to have 3 or 4 people there for every chore time. Now a couple of people can do chores for 400 cows, so it's just incredible what it allows you to do and be efficient.
Krakel's cows are milked using an automatic machine. It also cleans the cows and their udders and monitors their health.
Robots, our schedules are so much more flexible than they ever used to be. Like I said, it takes 1 to 2 people to do chores at night. It takes 2 to 3 in the morning.
Cats are fed and have their health monitored the same way.
Having that free time and that flexibility is huge. I mean, I've been able to attend weddings I never thought I'd be able to attend. Like, my parents go out some night, they can leave the farm at 5 or 6 o'clock. Like, it just never could happen before.
In Dubuque, I'm Ashley Scott, News 7 KWWL.
And our special hour-long program continues. Our discussion and reports on Iowa farming will continue in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Weather has been a whirlwind for Iowa farmers in 2019.
Right now, let's take a quick look back at the roller coaster.
Yeah, we had a bitterly cold and snowy start to the year. Iowa had below average temperatures and above average snowfall.
All that cold and snow led to a spring full of flooding for so many here in our state. Many spots in Iowa saw minor to major flooding, especially in western Iowa.
In my home state of Iowa, widespread flooding has had a devastating impact, causing an estimated $1.6 billion in damage in Iowa alone, with even more damage reported across the Midwest.
Now, Senator Joni Ernst lobbied to get the disaster and package signed. It includes $3 billion for those affected by the spring flooding across the Midwest.
And the USDA also announced assistance for Iowa flood victims in the form of low-interest loans, the Livestock Indemnity Program, and the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program.
A dry period followed those spring rains, finally gave our farmers a chance to get out in the fields, but the summer quickly faded into a rainy and chilly fall. Earlier than expected snowfall also contributed to the very, very late harvest this year.
The latest crop production report predicts Iowa's production at 2.52 billion bushels. Yield averages are expected at 192 bushels per acre. Now that would be a drop of 4 bushels an acre from last year. Soybean production is forecasted at 484 million bushels. The average yield is predicted at 53 bushels an acre. That is 3 bushels fewer than 2018.
All right, now let's go back to the Forecast Center with Chief Meteorologist Mark Schnackenberg about tonight's weather.
You got rain on the way. Temperatures are mild out there across eastern Iowa. We're in the 40s. We may even see temperatures warm up a couple degrees around here as we get towards the morning hours, and eventually these temperatures will drop off as we head through the day tomorrow as the storm system passes on by. As for any rain right now in eastern Iowa, all is quiet. Just a lot of clouds across the region. As we look at Storm Track 7 live Doppler radar, the rain is to our west of Interstate 35 here, but here in eastern Iowa, we will see the rain. It'll be as we get towards 9 and 10 o'clock, it becomes a bit more widespread. You can see all the rain off to the south and west. This is where the storm is coming from, and it'll pass through the area during the overnight hours. So it's going to be a rainy night, and into the morning hours we'll be dealing with scattered showers as well.
In addition to that, it's going to be a bit breezy here through the overnight hours. We're looking at a south wind here, and then as we get towards the morning hours, as the sun comes up, it becomes a northwest wind. That's when the temperatures will start to slowly fall. So you have our highs here in the upper 40s and low 50s, and then with a gusty wind out of the northwest, temperatures will drop into the low 40s in the afternoon, and eventually this wind does die down as we get towards the evening hours. So here's the rain as it spreads across the area. Rain could be locally heavy at times throughout the night, and then during the morning hours, not as heavy. It'll be scattered showers through the morning hours, and by lunchtime, a cloudy sky. As we get towards the afternoon, still cloudy. Probably won't see any sunshine because the sun will be down by the time we start to see the clouds clear from west to east. About a ½ inch to an inch of rain expected out of this. Again, high temperatures are going to be in the morning hours tomorrow, and then we'll see the upper 40s and low 50s drop into the low 40s during the afternoon with a gusty northwest wind. Your city-by-city forecast does include a chilly day on Friday, 40s on Saturday and Sunday, a pretty decent weekend on the way. Stay in the 40s on Monday. We're still tracking the potential for a storm to impact us, maybe some rain Tuesday, possibly some snow on Wednesday.
Hey, Mark, thank you very much. Let's take a live look right now at the view from the KWWL drone, looking at some of Iowa's 30 million farming acres. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Here still ahead, as you can see, our panel discussion coming up on our 1-hour farm special.
Yeah, some Iowa farmers and leaders, they are here to talk about their operations, current policy, and hopes for the future. Keep it right here on KWWL for our special report.
This is a News 7 KWWL special report. Growing Forward, the future of farming in Iowa.
We need to get USMCA ratified. We need that done tomorrow. That is one thing that could have a tremendous impact on not only our farmers and families, but our small businesses and manufacturing.
Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds recently talking about the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which has been signed but not ratified.
And welcome back to our KWWL special report. At this point, we would like to introduce our panel of farmers and ag leaders. Right beside me is Kate Edwards. She runs Wildwoods Farm. It is a CSA, that's a community-supported agriculture farm located in Johnson County. Kate is also a member of the Eastern Iowa Young Farmers Coalition.
Next, we have Sally Hollis, a well-known Blackhawk County farmer and owner of Lane Haven Farms, owned and operated by the Hollis family for 3 generations. Along with her husband Blake and the well-known Kurt and Betty Hollis, they produce seed corn, commercial corn, soybeans, and hogs.
And Jim Grive, the president of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. Jim grows corn and soybeans on his Lynn County farm, and he is also the owner of Prairie View Ag Service.
And also joining us live here tonight from Des Moines, Iowa, Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig. The Secretary is a crop and livestock farmer himself out in northwest Iowa. We thank him for making the trip to Waterloo tonight. Secretary Naig, you just helped head a delegation with Governor Reynolds to Japan to kind of get that market back online. So tell us briefly about what do you think, how it's going to impact positively the Iowa farmer.
Well, you know, in the trade picture, the situation with Japan is actually one of those bright spots that we've been hoping for, needing this year. And so, yes, the governor and I led a delegation. It's frankly something that Iowa does really, really well, and that's go on trade missions to see our customers. We're coming off of a new trade agreement that was recently signed between the United States and Japan. The president and the prime minister signed that agreement back in New York in September. I was actually in the room. That was kind of interesting to be there, and then to be on the trade mission to Japan last week. Tremendous opportunity to increase our pork and beef exports in particular to Japan. So we show up very well in that market. Been an important market for a couple decades, and we've got more opportunity coming this way.
Fantastic.
Secretary Naig, thank you very much. Now, I want to turn my first question to Jim. Jim, this is something you're very passionate about, and it is the Renewable Fuel Standards Rule. And first, a lot of hope on this, but then a lot of disappointment from the EPA. On October 30th, you spoke at the EPA public hearing, and I want a few quotes that you had in the things that you said that it's a trick, not a treat, their current proposal, and also you said that the trust factor with EPA is at an all-time low. Can you elaborate more your concerns, and also how has this affected your personal farm?
Well, it is a trick. President come and he promised us that they were going to do away with these small refinery waivers and work that back into the system. And a week later, we get the word from the EPA that they're not going to do that. So on one hand, they're telling us one thing, and on the other hand, they're telling us something else. personally, it's hurt the price of corn. It's taken over 1 billion bushel of corn off the market that should have been used up making ethanol for renewable fuels.
Absolutely. And Secretary Naig, you also spoke to the EPA.
That's right. You know, we've kind of had some highs and lows this year with renewable fuels, right? We go back to the beginning of the summer. The president came to Iowa and announced year-round access to E15, 15% ethanol blend, which is great news, an opportunity, a signal to expand the market. Fast forward to August, we had these small refinery exemptions, and boy, that took the wind out of our sails. And then we thought, again, with Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst and Governor Reynolds negotiating a deal with the White House to account for those waived gallons, and then EPA rolls out a rule that just doesn't hit the mark. So there's still time. We're encouraging folks to make sure they weigh in on this rulemaking by the end of November with EPA. There's still time to get it right. But this is an important industry for us. Iowa leads the nation. We're #1 in ethanol and biodiesel production. So we need to make sure that our voice is heard in this conversation.
And to go along with that, I do want to mention the public does have until November 29th. You can comment on the EPA website. And I know also on the Iowa Corn Growers website, I saw iowacorn.org. You can go there. There's many links to sign letters and also voice your opinion as well.
Sally, what's your biggest concern with this trade war going on and the tariff situation? How does it impact your farm here locally?
It definitely impacts us. As you mentioned, we're #1 in the nation. We raise corn, soybeans, hogs, and export markets are extremely important to us. And so these trade deals are of the utmost concern. As I think about the past year and the uncertainty that the trade deals have caused, the trade disputes, the lack of trade deals for farmers in the state has been large. And so it's not just, it's getting it known, and those trade deals are long relationships that have been there for decades. And that's my concern is, I think a lot of farmers understand some of the short-term pain and hopes that there's long-term gain, but we hope that we don't permanently damage some of those important relationships.
Yeah, because China's purchases of beans last year dropped like 74% because of the situation. Those export markets, that's crucial to the entire future of the industry, right?
Very much so.
Let's talk a little bit about the propane shortage. And I do want to mention that just today, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission announced it's going to try to do a resolution coming up. Of course, we'll keep everyone posted with that at KWWL.com. For Jim and Sally, as far as things going on your farm, is propane an issue right now?
Yes. It's been almost 3 weeks since I've had any propane delivered to the farm. Wow. Luckily, I've got a lot of storage, and I almost had enough to get done, but we are basically out of propane.
Kate, tell us about your operation, Community Supported Agriculture, down in Johnson County. I know you have 200 customers, but you've been in business almost a decade now. And tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
So I started farming about 9 years ago, and I had wanted to be a row crop farmer. And my grandparents were farmers, and I saw that that was a wonderful way to have a life. But I didn't see a way in because land access is such a thing for beginning farmers. And so I decided that vegetables took the least amount of land and the least amount of capital. And so I started with 11 customers and slowly grew it. And we grow now for over 200 families in the area. I'm a direct market farm, so that means that I grow the vegetables and sell them directly to the people that consume them. And they pay ahead, and then we deliver to them all season long.
Why do you think that the CSA model is so attractive to consumers today?
I think people want to know their farmer. People want to know where their food comes from. And as farmers, we have an opportunity to, as a part of a diversified types of operations, offer that as an opportunity.
Jim, I heard Gary Dolphin during the game last week say your slogan, something like, Iowa grows corn, but in reality, corn grows Iowa. And that's the message you are trying to get out there, right?
That is the message that as an Iowa corn grower president, I try to get out there. Corn is the #1 crop in Iowa, obviously, and we export a lot of corn all over the world, and we need to do whatever we can to promote corn growing in Iowa.
Let's turn our attention now, of course, to the USMCA. We saw the soundbite from the governor there just a bit. Just a few things. Senator Chuck Grassley spoke just on Friday in Washington talking about the importance of passing this. Just today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell spoke on the Senate floor, and Nancy Pelosi had said last week that a deal was imminent. So there's a lot, people are talking about it. What is the very latest, Secretary Naig, if you could answer upon this? How are people feeling?
Yeah, well, first of all, the governor's spot on. It's time to pass this trade agreement. It was negotiated over a year ago now, and here we've been waiting to get passage through our Congress. We believe the votes are there, And we need to get that vote taken. Right. And you know, there's a lot going on in Washington right now, but this is something that could actually be a boost to our economy. It certainly would support U.S. agriculture, Iowa agriculture in particular. Canada and Mexico are our #1 and #2 trading partners for Iowa. Right. So when you're talking about a trade agreement that deals with tariffs across those two borders, our closest allies, our closest neighbors, this is a big deal for us. And so there's a lot of frustration. You know, there's a lot of things that we can't control in agriculture, right? We talked a lot about weather this year. We can't control the weather, but this is something we can control. And this is something that could have a direct impact and provide some support and a boost to our economy. So when we don't do those things, that's a huge source of frustration. So we need to get that moving. And the other piece is that, you know, every day that our U.S. trade representatives are negotiating with Congress over the USMCA is a day that they're not able to go and negotiate new trade deals around the world, and we've got to go play offense on trade.
You know, the drone industry is becoming, we're talking about the future of farming. Sally, you mentioned you have drones on your farm. I mean, they're being used, the robots also. This is kind of the future, isn't it?
I think so, yes. I think technology is continuing at an exponential pace. And so 5 years ago, what we were doing with drones is nothing compared to what we're doing with drones today. We're able to use those to assist with crop scouting, and how that's going to continue with drones, with autonomous vehicles. I think the future of agriculture will continue to utilize more innovation and technology.
Interior grain prices today, I just checked, for corn, $334 to $368, beans, $817 to $876. Those are scary prices, aren't they, for you, all of you?
Yes. I mean, obviously that's below the cost of production for most of us.
I've been asking the candidates, how much does it cost to produce a bushel of corn or beans? Not one of them has been able to give me the answer yet. Not a single one, no.
And also in the latest crop progress report that just came out on Monday, 77% of the Iowa corn crop has now been harvested, 95% of soybeans. Sally, where does your farm stand right now?
We're fortunate to be done with harvest. So
very good.
Yes,
congratulations.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jim, what about you?
Yeah, we're almost done also. If we had a little propane, we could be done with the corn.
I was going to say, is that the main thing, the propane situation?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's it, okay.
All right. As far as I'm trying to get a time that we're getting from our producers, so we have about 30 seconds left in this. Coming up, we do want to talk about, of course, we're going to kind of move more into our talk about the future of farming. I also want to talk about water quality. Secretary Naig, I know so that's something you're very passionate about.
Absolutely.
Also soil health as well, and just also how we're recruiting the next generation as well. We'll talk about the Iowa FFA Association as well. All right. And be sure to keep it right here. We'll be right back with your KWWL special report, Growing Forward, the Future of Farming. Let's talk more now about farming and technology.
You know, sensors developed recently by University of Iowa students. These sensors track various weather patterns as well as soil moisture. And the Iowa students that designed them, they hope that this will become an affordable item down the road and soon for farmers.
Design idea for these sensors is to drive the price way down and to have hundreds of sensors in a field rather than one sensor in a field.
Now, right now, more than 30 Iowa farmers have these sensors in their fields, actually across the Midwest. They'll be asking for feedback so that the researchers at Iowa can better understand how the sensors can be made more efficient. And that's a situation that's, again, we're looking to the future here. But earlier in the show, we heard from Peter Snyder, and Peter told me that at their farm, one of the most important things is best farming practices and a healthy soil. And that means we're talking about chemicals, we're talking about water quality. Secretary Naig, I know that was a big platform for you and you're a candidate.
Well, absolutely. You know, we talked a lot about in the campaign about, you know, we wanted to make sure we were doing all the right things to build markets for our products. But one of the core elements to, if we want to remain productive and profitable in agriculture and to continue to lead the nation, we've got to take care of the natural resources that have allowed us to be that productive state. So soil and water has to be part of what we care about and what we focus on if we're going to remain productive long into the future. So we have a lot of focus on that. It's the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. I always add that last part on there. You know, it's a healthy portion of what we do and what I think about every day. And we're excited about the progress that we're seeing implementing Iowa's nutrient reduction strategy. And we got a lot of work to do. There's no doubt about it. This is not an easy task. It's not a one-size-fits-all type solution, and that can make it challenging. But boy, I'm proud of what's happening all across the state.
Sally, what are you doing on your farm to improve water quality?
We are also very passionate about it and have been very involved with the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy and have learned a lot about different practices and how they impact water quality. We have a denitrifying bioreactor that we put in the fall of 2013, and so really getting to see the results of how much that's improving water quality at the inlet versus the outlet. We do a lot with cover crops and just staying active in the conversation. So always trying to learn. There's exciting new wetlands going on in our county and a number of initiatives to improve water quality.
You know, you mentioned cover crops, and Kate, I know that you have said that you guys have a lot more in common than you think, even though you're a smaller operation
Yes, we do.
than these 4,500.
Cover cropping is one of those things that no matter what the scale is something that's very important for soil health. So we were just talking that we all use one of the same cover crops, rye. So it's kind of a fun thing to know that all farmers have a lot in common, no matter the size of the type of operation.
Absolutely. And Kate, the reason I got to know you over time, we had done a story back, about, you're a member of the Eastern Iowa Young Farmers Coalition. Tell us more about what work you're doing and also what assistance right now is available for young farmers.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm really excited about right now is the Eastern Iowa Young Farmers Coalition. We are a group of young farmers that are realizing that we have unique needs as farmers, and it's part of a national organization as well. But one of the things that we were able to accomplish last winter was to introduce some legislation and have some legislative support for some land access issues that's very unique to direct market farmers that are smaller farmers. So we're excited to have some momentum on that for this coming season, legislative season, and also work to support each other because you know, we need that farming community of young farmers supporting each other.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How worried are all of you about the age of the farmer? We said the average age now is 59, but there are so many farmers that are age 65 or older in our state, and not that many farmers, or we need more farmers age 45 and younger, right? So the concern, Sally, do you have that or not? You want to pass it on to your kids, right?
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. So yes, it's a concern, and I also see a number of young individuals interested in farming.
Great.
And so it's exciting from that perspective to see the number, and I wish there were more. And I think that's the challenge, is that the opportunity is large, and we have to figure out how to get young people really excited. Any young person living in Iowa has a unique opportunity. They are surrounded by agriculture, and the number of job opportunities are astronomical. So we just need to do a better job of sharing those opportunities and continuing to get more young people involved.
Oh, and speaking of, Jim, I know the Iowa Corn Growers Association, I saw, currently has nearly 7,500 members. Of course, that's a number that you're going to want to continue to grow. What are some of the efforts being made to make sure that the young people do know the great career that they can have in agriculture?
Well, Iowa Corn has a collegiate advisory team where we take young students from the different universities and bring them into programs and show them a lot of what Iowa Corn does. And programs like that are available from other organizations also. So there's opportunity out there for young people if they just go looking a little bit. There is opportunity to get involved with agriculture.
And there's mentorship opportunities involved as well, because if you're going to start farming and you didn't grow up on a farm like me, then you need that mentorship. So things like PFI's mentorship program or other Farm Bureau has programs. There's a lot of programs in the state for matching a younger farmer with an older farmer to learn.
Absolutely, and we'll be sure that after this program we put together a very comprehensive list of those opportunities where young people can get that information as well. Secretary Naig, how do we recruit the next generation of farmers?
Yeah, this is a challenge, and we need to go a little broader maybe than what we historically have thought of. And so Kate, you mentioned it. We need some folks coming into agriculture, right? And one of the things I love to do is get into schools to especially visit with our ag programs and our FFA chapters across the state. Something I always ask when I'm with the group, I'll say, who grew up on a farm? Half, maybe even more than half did not. That's a great thing. I like to share that, there's, whether you're involved in, you're interested in farming or engineering or nutrition or health or, there's all kinds of careers that you can choose under that ag umbrella. And we don't just expect that farm kids are going to pursue these careers. We need to go broader. So there's some great ag programs in some places you wouldn't necessarily expect, some urban school districts, and that's a wonderful thing to see. We need more of that kind of effort.
Yeah, because the world population is expected to be 9 billion by 2050. That means farmers are going to have to increase production by about 70% to just try to reach this demand of food that's going to be necessary to feed the world.
But do so sustainably. And I think that's the key, is we need to double production, and we can't just double the acres that we need to do that on.
Right.
That's the key, and so that's going to require innovation and new thinking, and that's the exciting part about what the future of agriculture holds for us.
Okay.
We mentioned a bit earlier about how you guys all have, you know, the cover crops in common, but you ladies both have engineering degrees, and you work full-time in engineering as well. All right, so a lot of common background here together. All right, we do have to take another quick break. Be sure to keep it right here. We do have another segment coming up right after this.
I know our farmers were promised that, you know, we'd have a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain, and we haven't seen it yet. I've had folks come into my office who are dipping into 401ks, who are telling their kids not to go into farming because they're so worried about the future.
First District Congresswoman Abby Finkenauer talking about the impact of the trade war going on with China. And you know, our program has the Growing Forward, talking about the future of Iowa. That's how we kind of want to wrap things up here tonight, isn't it, Abby?
Absolutely. We have a few minutes left, and we want to, again, bring it to what brought us all together here tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
So we have a simple question for you. What does the future of farming look like to you? Obviously, not a simple answer here. We're going to give you each just a few seconds to answer this. We'll start with Kate.
Okay. I am a strong advocate that all farmers can work together to build healthy soils and to build vibrant farm communities. And I think we can work together to remove the barriers so that we can have a vibrant young generation of farmers get into agriculture and revitalize agriculture and continue it on for generations to come in Iowa.
Sally.
I agree completely. I think in addition, consumers continue to play a very big role in agriculture going forward. And I think farmers have to be listening to consumers and making sure that they're meeting their needs, as well as the stewardship of what we're doing. And then I think the opportunity for encouraging more people is important. So the future will have that, and we need people who are going to embrace that new technology.
There you go. All right, Jim.
Well, like Ron mentioned, the world population is going to almost double in the next 25 or 30 years, and that means we're going to have to double our production, and we're going to need new technologies or use existing technologies to the limit. And obviously the arable farmland in the world is decreasing, not increasing, and we're going to have to make use of better traits and better use of water and all the technology that we can put to bear in front of us to keep up with the demand for food.
Yeah, absolutely. Secretary Naig.
Well, this is the danger of being the last one in line. You know, those are great answers.
You've got some time. You've got some time.
You know, look, we have such a great history of and tradition of agriculture in this state. It's who we are. It's so much a part of what we are, and I fully believe the future is so bright for us. But we need to focus on. We can't take for granted that will always be the case. And so, you know, when we think about, we've got to make sure we've got markets for products, right? We talked a lot about that. That's an ongoing task. I love the comment about connecting with consumers. That will be an opportunity for folks to better understand what we do. We've got to make sure we're doing things more sustainably, and that will be technology enabled in a lot of ways, I believe. And then we maybe end with one of the most important things is to make all of those things happen. We've got to make sure we're bringing the talent into agriculture in every phase of what we do to make that happen. So I like to say we've got something really worth fighting for here, and I'm so excited to see what that future does hold and to be a part of trying to make that happen.
We have about a minute to go, and Sally, you mentioned earlier that you have actually stopped giving your hogs that ribtopamine additive, and that means that could open up your market to China because they don't allow it in China, right? Yeah.
Correct, and that's something that a number of large packers in the United States have made a decision to do, and that is being driven by markets, meeting and listening to your consumer and meeting those consumer needs. So it's important.
Yeah, it's been allowed here since 1997, but it's been totally banned in China for as long as I can remember anyway. So yeah, that's an important market for the United States and Iowa farmers for sure.
All right, and we do have to take one more quick break. Thank you all very much for those answers. Now we do have one more question for this half hour, and it's going to go to Secretary Naig, so you better get ready for that. Be sure to keep it right here on KWWL for our special report, Growing Forward, the Future of Farming.
And welcome back here to our live discussion here tonight about the future of farming right here in our great state of Iowa.
And we do have a final question, as I mentioned right before the break. It's going to go to Secretary Naig. An Iowa State University report just out indicates that 44% of farmers in Iowa are financially vulnerable right now. Do you think that we could be heading towards another 1980s farm crisis?
Well, look, we're very concerned about some of those, those numbers that we're seeing, and I don't think we're close to that situation yet. But Jim had said it we've talked about this, when the cost of production exceeds the value of the crop in most cases, or a lot of cases, that's not a sustainable situation. But I think there's reason to be hopeful that we do turn this around. We do start to see a series of Japan-like agreements, that we can get on the right side of this, that we can continue to support and grow that market. So that is my hope. But this is a time of pressure and economic challenge for farmers. That is absolutely true. So we need good news, and we need to move in the right direction.
And real quickly, besides Japan, what's your next big target as far as an export market?
Well, again, USMCA passing Congress is the next most important thing that we can do on the trade front. But look, there's lots of places around the world that we can go and expand our opportunities. So, hey, the sky's the limit.
Very good.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. That does it for our KWWL special report.
Thank our panel here tonight, and also thank you, the Iowa farmer, for feeding our country and the nation. Thanks for watching.